and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode on running contacts, we're looking at freddles after the dog walk. And we're going to be looking at two types of freddle, but in this video we're going to look at tight freddles, and then we'll talk in another video about loose freddles. So first of all, let's explain what a freddle is. It goes by various names. Sometimes people call them pull-ins, pull-throughs. What I mean when I'm talking about a freddle is that my dog has to go to the back of the jump and take the jump, but they're taking it away from me. So if I was here and I wanted them to do the back of the jump, that's just a backside. That's what we've already shown you in that video, because I'm asking them on my drive arm to turn with me. When I do a freddle, it's because I need them to come between me and the jump and turn away from me. So that's the main difference with a freddle and in this scenario. In other scenarios, a freddle is because you're asking the dog to pull through a gap. But in this scenario, what we're talking about as a freddle is the dog is coming between me and the jump, instead of me being like this and the dog that side of me, and they've got to come round the back and take it away. Now, when we're doing this on a running contact, we want to be able to do it with as much distance as possible. Normally, when we talk about freddles and things, or pull-ins or whatever, we'd expect to be this side of the jump and ask the dog to come with us. But with the way things are going and the sophistication of running contacts, we're now asking dogs to do this independently. So effectively, the dog has got to come down and do that whole behaviour with us maybe over here, or even back here, or even some very, very good people can do it when they're down there and they're just asking the dog to do it. You know, it's just the nature of the beast that the courses are getting bigger, and we need to be able to ask for that behaviour independently. I'm going to talk to you about tight freddles or freddle wraps in this episode. Now, a freddle wrap is when the dog comes to the jump, they move to the back side and they turn tight. I'm asking the dog to come round to the back, and then I'm probably wanting to go over in that direction. Certainly I'm not going to be wanting to go anywhere that way, because if I was, I'd ask them for a freddle loose. So in this scenario, a tight freddle means they're coming round this way and going away. Very much like with our backsides, I have two cues. I have the cue that means take the jump long, and the cue that means take it tight. So to ask my dog to take it the freddle tight, it's a completely different cue. It's not the same cue as if I was asking them to do a backside tight, because that's a different behaviour. It's in. If I want my dog to go long, so I want it to come to the back and jump long, and a freddle loose, freddle long, that's calm. But we're talking about the tight one, the in. Arms. The old way of doing this was to have your off arm. So this is your drive arm, because the dog would be on this side of you. This is your off arm, because it's the arm that is off to the dog. It's not the obvious arm to the dog. And what you'd be doing is you'd be pulling your body round, picking your dog up on this arm, and you'd almost be imagining you were stirring a pot like that and doing this movement. That was fine, but courses got bigger, more complicated, more challenging, and this actually is slow. Some people still do it, but it is actually a slow way of doing that turn. So now what people are doing is they're doing it on the drive arm. So they're asking the dog to come down, and they're asking to do it like this. So they're still doing that stirring manoeuvre, but instead of doing it with the off arm, they're doing it with the drive arm, asking the dog to come down and turn like this. And obviously, if you start to get to the stage where you want to be completely independent, then you're going to be asking the dog to come down and do it on a word. You might still do the arm manoeuvre, but you're going to be asking them to do it on a word. So I'll show you what it looks like on the flat, and then we'll add in a dog walk. We haven't done this in a while, have we? So I'm going to do it quite close, because it's easier. She hasn't done this in a while, and it's easier than being far back, because you can see what I'm doing. In. Good girl. So you see I stirred it, and she stirred the pot and she went round. Like all these behaviours, you need to have perfected them on a jump before you start adding in a dog walk. Your dog needs to understand at least the basics of that cue. When we start adding in the dog walk, it gets more complicated, because we're adding in that complexity of behaviour. You'll notice I've set my jump up, off centre again, like I did for the back sides, to make this easier for the dogs. Now, to be fair, I would never expect to do an in if the jump was centralised. You know how we did with the backside cues where I had the jump completely central? I would never expect to do that as an in. There wouldn't be any point, because if the jump was completely central, what I would do is I'd ask the dog to push to that backside and pick them up there. So the only time I'd be doing a tight in would be if it's like this, or even slightly further away, where I know that to send them out to the back would actually really have to push their line, and this is the nicer way to do it. Because it is a tight move, I try to limit how many times I do on a tight move. I prefer loose, flowy turns. So I wouldn't expect to do like I did before and move this right over. This is where I would expect it to be. Potentially you might move it out that way. That might be slightly easier because that would tempt the dog to come round, but you wouldn't expect to move it forward. Now, with this manoeuvre, because with Threadles you are asking them almost to come with you and turn around, we're going to start ourselves in a different position. So we're going to add in the dog walk. So she's going to be on the dog walk. Good girl, wait. I'm going to be here because I think of this as a pull rather than a push. And a push you do from behind, a pull you do from the head. So I would be here. Okay, in. Good girl. And do it like that. Again, she knows the move on the flat, so that's not a problem. Good girl. And then what I'm going to do, okay, sit, is move back. Now I'm going to give plenty of room. I want her to have plenty of room to get around this. To be fair, I want the distance on this. I want her to be able to do this independently, so I don't want to be tight on that ring. But I'm back a bit. Oopsie. Did you move? I know why. You didn't say wait, did I? So I'm going to be a bit further back. And obviously this is going to take time, and you know, depending on how good you are on these on the flat, it takes time. But she's doing this from the dog walk. In. And we picked up the wrong jump. So why did she pick up the wrong jump? Jump is there as a tempter. Yes. She must have looked at that jump. Good girl. Rather than my arm, she didn't listen to the cue. Okay. So I shall make sure I focus all my attention on that jump. In. Yes, good girl. I made sure my arm was not going like this. I made sure my arm was going like that. In fairness, if I was training this from fresh, I wouldn't have that jump there, because we don't want that extra distraction and complication while we're training an easy behaviour like this. We want to keep it quite simple. Now I'm going to move it back here. Can you sit? Now I'm going to be here. This is the furthest I'm probably going to go in this session, but I'm going to see if I can get her to do it from here. Now at this point she is using my arm, but she's doing it independently. Okay. In. Good girl. And she looked at that jump because she looked at my arm. Didn't listen to the words, looked at my arm. So I'm going to be careful with that arm, and I'm going to start with the in cue. In. Okay, that tells me she's using my body motion. Swift, come give me a nose, yes, good girl, sit. Nice. Now I'm rewarding her because she loses drive, all dogs will, and so if she fails, I do something else with her so she still gets rewarded. Because in this scenario, she's learning, sit, it must be me. So I need to make sure I do this arm properly. Okay, in, yes. Okay, that tells me something. I've got to learn that she's using my arm rather than the word. We've done everything from here, and they've been static on the dog walk, and they've added in the dog walk. But just static, but they're doing it from the contact, so we're taking that element out. So now we want to try it a bit further back. So they've actually got to run. Right, in, good girl. You can see I don't ask her to wait there very often. Good girl. But you do ideally want to ask them to wait, or if necessary have someone hold them so you can just get that step ahead. Let's see what she does if I'm further back. We obviously have done this before. Go. In, yes, good girl. If I'm honest with you, I think she's better when I'm further back, because she was concentrating more on what the word was. But so that's what we want to get to of a stage with the dog walk. Now obviously we need to be paying attention to our contact as well. Is our dog getting the contact when we ask that behaviour? What you can find when you're teaching these behaviours is that the change of the word distracts the dog enough to make them falter on their stride, which is why we need to do this so they can learn that no matter what's happening, what they're asked to do next, they still get their contact. Go. In, yes. So there was no issues there. Lovely contact and beautiful freddle tight. So we'd obviously build that back. We'd work it for the full dog walk, keep building the distance, lateral distance as well as distance back, and build on that. And that is your freddle tight. And I have seen these on high level courses, so they are definitely something that has the potential to appear. Good girl. And it's something to be aware of. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video, and if you have, you might subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.